Thank you. Who have loved us, who have cared for us. We do this in special ways like Memorial Day, Veterans Day, right? Birthdays, birthdays for those living and those gone, right? We call them back to heart, and we remember that we have been infinitely gifted, not only with the truth of this precious life. And we have talked before about the fact that we begin with our own mothers and fathers, right? We begin right there. That there, you don't have to go back 100 years or 900 years or the beginning of time. You simply go back to your beginning, at least in this version, to your mother and father. And we have struggled with this idea, haven't we, as a Sangha? Because, well, they weren't always so loving. They weren't always so kind. They weren't always so great. They were an addict. They left. They abandoned the family. They, right, were abusive. And it can all be true. That's a part of our essential humanness, isn't it? In our vulnerability. And yet the teaching says no, no matter the condition, no matter how they were, no matter who it was, they have given you the most precious gift, which is the opportunity to heal, to correct, to love, to transform whatever that was, that you now are the living opportunity to mediate, meditate, to put it right, right? And that is the most supreme is the word, right? And sublime privilege. So can we get it at that level? That you're here for whatever didn't happen to make it happen. And this life has offered this to you. And so on these days, All Saints Day, what are some others? I think there's even an All Sinners Day that's acknowledged, like even when you got it wrong. Yeah, like dads or right, lighting candles. There's a thing I know, an anniversary of a death called a Yurtzeit, right, in the Jewish tradition, where the honoring of that person, even gone, right, even past. And so Dia de los Muertos is just another opportunity from another culture that's we're embedded in, actually. And so the part of it is another privilege, right? That we can learn about it, that we can participate. But because that's not my tradition, I haven't studied that. I don't know. I have had a lot of fun with it. We've dressed up and had a really good time. I had a bunch of jeweled skeleton stuff, but the Party City didn't have it in yet. That I thought we'd all have fun with, and we still will. But in this tradition, then, in the contemplative traditions, it says it would be useful then to call to mind what they call the 5 Remembrances. And so let's talk about that for a minute before we practice it. The 5 Remembrances, 5 things it says to call to mind every day. Anybody remember? Some of you have practiced this at least 10 times, if not more. Anybody remember them? Very simple phrases. I am of the nature to age. Remember this? Yeah. Lisa's like, oh, yeah. Right? I cannot escape the truth of age. Isn't it right? There's no, I don't care what you did. I don't care how many things you took. Cannot escape the truth of aging. How then shall I live? Right? Key question. How then shall I live? Since that's not going to be it. I cannot escape the truth of illness. This body is of the nature to be ill. That's a crazy line. We don't buy into that very well here, do we, in the West? This body is of the nature to be ill. It doesn't say well. It's of the nature to be ill. I cannot avoid the truth of illness. How then shall I live? And it goes on, right? And so we're going to do that practice today, because what we rest in at the end then is actually the exact same thing as mother-child luminosity. What do we rest in when all of the things, all of the objects, all of the memories, all of the mind states, all of the emotions, what do we rest in when that's all dissolved? And that's where we go. We rest in that vast, wide, supreme, brilliant firework of open space, letting everything come and go with just ease. And what are the phrases? Like a cloud passing in the sky, like here and gone. And then it becomes, there's two ways that we reactively approach that then, isn't there? What are anybody guess the two ways we approach that truth? What? We run the other way by going, it's not true. I'm not going to open to that. I'm just going to shut that down. I'm going to focus over here on my things, my yard, my whatever you got, that. Or you go, it doesn't matter anymore. It gets kind of nihilistic, doesn't it? Like, meh. So nothing matters. Since I can't keep it, then I will reject it all. Nothing's relevant, nothing matters. And that's just a protective device too, isn't it? Protective. It isn't true. It's just like, I don't want to care about the thing because I'm going to lose the thing. And by the way, we've all done that. Every single one of us, every mind, every heart here has gone, okay, never mind. I don't need to think about that or care about that even, because I'm gonna lose it. And the loss is so pervading. We have not attended to the reality of loss sufficiently, so we just run in every version. And right here in this very little bubble, we're some of the best runners around. We train for it. I think we have the highest triathlete population here, right? We train for running. Get me out of here. Just keep me going, right? Until, thank you, Brad. There's this chair right here. Something, blanket. And so we recognize that mind, right? But we don't want to mistake that. This is the key point, maybe, and the fifth remembrance. We don't want to mistake any of that for who we really are. Wouldn't that be a shame? As of just a runner, or just a hold gripper, or just a clinger. Wouldn't that be unfortunate? Because really, there is something in all of us. We are all capable beyond our recognition, by the way, beyond your own knowing. I love that. Like, there's more. It's good to hold it all. The pain, the fear, the vulnerability, the not knowing, the confusion. And that also is mother-child luminosity. Having united, I can hold the child in their distress and not be confused by it and not mistake it for my essential true nature. This is a key point, isn't it? Because otherwise we get caught in the cycle. We're just in the trap of going, well, how do I just not be that? How do I just not be scared? How do I just not be selfish? How do I just not be? It's not really the point at all. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your time. It's one of our bad spiritual bypassing habits, isn't it? How do I not be this? There's no such thing. So forget about it. How do I hold that? Then recognizing the truth of this human vulnerability. And we open to that so that we can feel as open-heartedly as possible for ourselves then, in our vulnerability, as we recite the remembrances, and then for you, as you struggle, as you get confused, as you become a dope, as you don't say the thing that really was most in your heart, right? Then we can feel for each other. And rather than just perpetuate the samsara, the cycle of suffering with, well, that was stupid. They're dumb. Why couldn't they get it together? Or even, why couldn't I get it together? Right? This is not useful. Can we hold ourselves? Really? And the answer is mostly no. That's the truth. The answer is mostly no. Why? Because it hurts. Or it's scary, right? And who wants that? So do you get what I'm saying? Dia, can you hear me okay over there? I'll try to scream a little more. Right? And so then with that truth, the truth that we just told, the question we always ask first is, how do I train, practice, remember? How do I do that? And these 5 remembrances are one of the offerings. We call this to mind. And the training says we do it every day. You don't just do it once on a Saturday when we're celebrating Dia de los Muertos. You remember every day, nothing I love, everything I cherish, and love will be lost. So then what do I live from there? Well, then you might hug your mother before you dust under your bed, is the point, right? You might go, I'm not going to spend so much time on the thing, which is why my car looks like it does and Adrian's car looks like it does. Right? I'm not going to invest so much in the clean car, but I am going to bring a lot to the party. Right? But I am going to bring a lot to the party. This party of life. And yeah, there'll be red things in the car. And I will probably have spilled some of the coffee that I was bringing. And the quiche, by the way, I decided to, fun story, Cuisinart, the cheese, eggs, and cream. Yeah. Okay. So there's a thing that happens when you put too much in a Cuisinart and you turn it on. A la this new shirt. That's how I got into this one. It went all over the floor, all over the counter. Right? I was calling the dog, like, get up here quick. We need emergency licking. Okay, you get the idea. Anybody have anything to say about this before we begin? Anybody want to say, I didn't really want to do this practice today? Kind of everybody, really, right? This was not the one. I like celebration. I love remembering, calling to mind, but I don't want to call this to mind because this is harder. And that's exactly why we train for it. We're going to grow muscle for being with it all, because we do have a little tendency to turn towards, right, the negativity anyway. We have negativity bias. The negativity we turn towards, though, is not these remembrances. What is it? What do I need to do to keep this? We actually waste our time a lot. What do I need to do to secure, to stabilize, to guarantee, to promise, to all of this? And then, of course, we continue in the cycle because there is no way. It's not within our reality to do so. Okay. So even if you didn't want to be here, you're here now. I've got you. I'm looking at everybody, including Pete. Okay, so let's prepare to practice. And I'll try to speak up because the good news is we have lots of people here. Thank you all for coming. If you're not here and you want to join us, please do so. We're going to be stopping about 8:30. I'm going to check with Libby. Do you need me to set something, Lib, for the pulling those out? Okay. If it gets to be about that, we only have a few more minutes. Okay. And so just finding a comfortable, open-hearted posture. What does open-hearted mean? It might help to open the shoulders back, Release the neck a little, let that heart shine, and we get to rest back. It's already hard. We don't have to make it worse. And then we rest for just a few moments. We don't run to these phrases. That's not very fair. And we aren't yet in that heart mind. We first call to mind, as we were discussing, all that has come before that has supported us, beginning with our own parents, living or dead. Their care for us, if not care, their attempts at care. The fact that we were carried. And that we are being carried still. And then all those that came before, their parents and theirs, all of the Buddhas, all of the awakened ones, all of the protectors, all of those who cared throughout just our own lineage, may they be called to mind. And may you know that by your very living, by your very presence, they are alive still. I have my great grandmother's hair and my grandmother's bladder infection history. It's all here. You are at best an amalgam of all that has come before. Some of which you know and can recollect, and this is good. But we leave room here. We leave room for all of the good, all of the contribution that we know nothing about. And it's probably infinitely more than anything you do know. And we call that resting in emptiness. But there can be, when we are sufficiently still, silent, and present, there can be that felt sense of all things coming from all directions throughout all time, supporting you. And how easily we forget. And then as we're recollecting, we can call those by name who we can recollect, who we do remember, who we did know. And just go through a little silent mental process of inviting in my dad's right here, my grandfather, my grandmother. I'm calling them all, picturing them, inviting them here to this precious present moment and this celebration of them. And all the good that they contributed that is alive now. And then I'm going to strike the bell, and we're just going to rest in that for several moments. And then we'll offer other instructions. May all beings benefit, near or far, young or old, born, dead, or yet to be born. This is not an analysis. I'd be watchful to think you've got to pin the tail on the donkey. I call it by thinking of all the people ever. This is not helpful. Just rest. See if you can't find that out breath. Settle in. Allow the release of the out breath. And then we're going to open wide into that skylight quality. And then let whatever comes come. A little just image of my great grandmother's hair, which was like my hair, just flashed before me. And then in your own mind, I'd like you to offer a gentle bow as these images, as these remembrances appear, honoring, acknowledging the good that was contributed, that made you. I just, another example, I just recollected my hands. I have hands like a basketball player. Those are my Grandpa Kowalczyk's butcher hands. They killed a lot of things. And there was even good in them. Offered to feed families. Where did you get those feet? Those knees, that generosity, maybe even that fear, that anxiety, that worry. You are now carrying all of this, each characteristic, each trait, each state, for all those who have come before. Maybe you have particular qualities of determination or discipline. Maybe you're an amazing cook. Maybe you're a lover of animals or plants, all having come before you. These lips, they were somebody else's once and will be again. And then we begin to recognize that there's really nothing to grip, nothing to cling to, and nothing to make I, me, or mine. We are a continuation of that basic goodness and also of the reality of this human vulnerability. How then shall we live? And we can all begin simply like this by honoring the good, recollecting where, when we know where it came from, bowing to that goodness, and also acknowledging the vulnerability. We don't have to push anything away. And then we rest back again and again, nothing to fix, nothing to have to improve, nothing to make different. It is really liberation through recognition. There is not a part you could touch, internal, external, or otherwise, that has not come before you. And then we rest in the breath itself, something else that has come before you. We breathe the breath of all that has come. in the Tibetan tradition. They call it the breath of the awakened ones. That each breath you breathe was breathed before you by someone who had an investment, an interest in the continuation, who is working not only for themselves, but for you well before you were born. And then we breathe the breath of the awakened one in you. That wisdom, that compassion, that devotion, that commitment that is alive right here and right now, bringing all of that that has come before into being again. How then shall we live? And then we remember that the continuation of that goodness can only be lived right now. There is no other moment. There is nothing future. There is only this moment and then this breath. We embody and enliven all the good that has come before, right here and right now. And in most spiritual traditions, they recognize the truth of this and called something like embodied Christ, embodied Buddha. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote a book, Living Christ. And so, whatever your tradition from whatever land, people, culture, you carry the embodiment of all of that. There is no other awakened one than you. And then how do we hold that without arrogance, without grandiosity, without privilege, without believing we are deserving in some way of more than our brothers and sisters? We recollect the 5 Remembrances. May I remember that this body, this mind, that I myself am of the nature to age. I cannot escape or avoid aging. How then shall I live? May I recollect this body is of the nature to become ill. I cannot avoid the reality of illness. This is a part of the human condition that cannot be escaped. How then shall I live? May I remember that this body, my body, is of the nature to die. Try as I might, I cannot avoid the reality of death. It cannot be escaped and is a part of this human condition. I will die. How then shall I live? May I recollect now and every day that everything I love, all beings, all things, everything that has been cherished will be lost. Nothing can be kept. How then shall I live? If you feel a tightness, a tension, a block, a resistance, welcome that too. And the fifth remembrance is the invitation. May I recollect and remember that I am heir to my actions, that I am born of my actions, that my thoughts, words, and deeds are all that I stand on. that this is what will continue both now at the time of death and beyond. It is the only ground in the groundless ground of being. How then shall I live? And may these recollections and remembrances be of benefit. And set direction and path for how we live right now. And as we honor the past and the present, we set a most beautiful course for the next moment and the next generation and the next breath. So be it. And so then what's the answer? How then do you live? Every moment you wake up and you wake up and you wake up, and don't you? And you're compelled to do it, aren't you? Don't you feel it like, I better use this? A lot's been invested, maybe everything. Over and over. And then can you feel the energy for it? You can, can't you? You go, I better get on this. I better get this thing going on. I don't have any time to waste. You don't. It's true. And then what do you change then? What do you change then? Less distracted. Yeah, I like that. Distracted by what? All the shoulda, coulda, woulda. Right? What's the point of that? Can't help you now. You can only, right? How do I open here? How do I acknowledge, recognize here? Again and again and again. And then it's also a little bit useful, I think, to start to notice where we get distracted, that we start to see the habits, right? It's a little bit. We do tend, by the way, says the neuroscience, we do tend to have a penchant for the past or the future. I don't know how they figured that out, but and that it's a loop. It's not alive. It's a dead loop that just is like it's annoying at best, and it doesn't honor the truth of this precious life either. It's just a dead repeat. And that comes with a little bit of legacy also. That's not just ours. That's also lineage. Worry about this, and then you worry about that, and then you get over, right? You got to count on this, and then you got to make sure you're somethings, and then you got your instructions, didn't you? You got your instructions throughout all time. Some of them habit natured. It's nice to know the difference, though. How do you know the difference then? Because we've gotten all kinds of instructions. How do you know the difference between the ones I might really want to pay attention to and the ones I might want to let go of? How do you know the difference? One guarantees suffering. That's how you know. It'll feel like shit. That's how you know it. It'll collapse you, contract you, minimize you, make you small, pull you in, shut you down. That's how you know it. What's the other one do? Wide open, wide open, without even knowing, right? It isn't because I know how to do it. It's because I'm completely open to it. And you don't know, in fact. You kind of couldn't, could you really? You just go, I'm going to show up completely for this. And then you see what happens. right? Opening completely. And what does that look like? How do you know it? How do you know the opening versus the, besides the physical, the contractedness versus the, how do you know it? The body itself. Peaceful. There's a kind of calm in it. We rest in the not knowing, someone would say. You don't know how it's gonna, but you're kind of, you get into a kind of a way of just arriving there without the predetermined script, right? Without the, if only it goes like that, the demands we place on the present moment, it's got to go like this, right? And if it doesn't go like that, then it's wrong or broken or failed or somehow deficient. Or I am. We do it in all, right. We do that in all directions. And then in mother child luminosity, what the instruction is, it says we open to everything, including our terror, including our fear, including our not liking it, not wanting it that way, our wanting to know, our wanting to have the script as well. Right? We don't leave that out either. Right? It's like, okay, that I feel anxious about that. I don't know yet. I'm just being open. And that's that groundlessness that the Bardo talks about, right? That's the groundlessness. I don't know how to live this moment yet. I'm just arriving, right? And we all like the idea, don't we? That if we do X, we get Y. That's like a formulaic, Joko used to call that a false or substitute life, the one you constructed before you lived it. If I just do this, if I go to college, if I marry the right guy, if I have those kids, if I get that car, I don't know, keep that job, whatever you got going on, then I'll be, yeah, happy, secure, free. What's the other fantasies? Rich. Safe. That's one of my favorites. Then I'll be safe, secure, protected. You might not get sick and die. If you can, right? Just keep it going. If you exercise enough, right? You know, the angriest people that I've ever seen die, guess who they were? The people who did it all right and still died. Pissed off about it. I mean, really pissed off. Like, what? I did yoga every day. I got that $4,000 green juice thing machine. I do my own wheatgrass. I did it all. And look at me. Here I am, 50 something years old. And I'm going to die. Not, and then what do we do? Not fair, not just, not right, not something, right? Don't we? And then we see the other person who's, right, drunk too much, smoked, right? They didn't really, you know, and there they are, 98. You're going, really? How did that happen? And by the way, it doesn't mean anything, really, does it? Because the amount of years isn't really the point either, is it? It's not. It's how you lived it. That's the fifth remembrance. All the years put together doesn't make a life, does it? It doesn't make for love. Certainly doesn't make for happiness or ease. You're getting none of it. And so then how do you live? With that remembrance. Don't you call it to mind every day? You go, this might be it. And I know it's not the most pleasant because we don't like that reality. But that's the reason we're calling it to mind, isn't it? Because we would avoid it at all costs were we able. We're not able, says the remembrances. And so then begin by remembering that. And then that will help set the priorities, right? Does all the things we need. Is there any more to say about this? You get why it's a practice, right? You get why you won't want to do it, right? I actually had a mindfulness teacher that I was mentoring say, I don't want to start my day like that. That's a quote. I said, call it to mind first thing in the morning. I don't want to start my day like that with all that negativity. It's not negative. It's just true. You made it negative. How did you do that? Because I don't want that. But how do you get away from that? Other than put your head in the sand and now collapse your capacity to be alive and awake. That's what you had to do. You literally had to dive into denial. And you thought it would help. No, it didn't. It deadened you right there. It deadened you right there. You are no longer alive. You're scripting through. I call it dead walking. Dead man walking. Because what? I'm just going to try to pretend like it's all going to be okay, right? And so I just stay like this every day. Just don't move, and maybe it'll all be okay. No, it won't. That's not the way. In fact, that's the worst thing you could do. It might be better to call it to mind and then go, how then do I want to contribute something? How then do I want to love? How then do I want to have compassion for us all, who are all in the exact same boat, unavoidably, all of us. And that's the way to compassion and wisdom, isn't it? You will not live the day well in denial of the fact that it might be your last day. You will not do it well. Could you? You couldn't. And what if you considered it? How would you live then? This is the only one. You'd put everything in it, wouldn't you? Literally everything, all out there. You wouldn't let fear get in the way. You couldn't, could you? You go, this is it. This is it. This is all I've got. And coming to that at the last breath is not that handy. I've told this story a lot, and then we're going to end. My brother, as he was dying, and he recognized that he was dying now, he wasn't quite in the same level of denial he had been. He was lifting weights still. Right. So there was that. Right. I'm getting stronger. Maybe. Probably not muscles. And he said, you know what? I just came to something. What was that? He said, I should have been golfing. I should have been golfing. I shouldn't have been cleaning out the gutters. I shouldn't have a floor you could eat off of in the garage, which, by the way, you could. I shouldn't have lined up all those batteries by D's, C's, double A, right? No, right? What a waste of time. No, it's nice to know where your batteries are. That's not the point. But he invested everything in that security. And it was never going to work, was it? It doesn't matter how clean your garage floor is. You're still going to age. You're still going to get ill. You're still going to die. And you're still going to lose everything you love. And you can't get out of it. Even with that rubber coating that he put on there. So that nothing stuck. All right. Thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. I should have been golfing. And so I'll leave you with that Buddha wisdom. I should have been golfing. Let's sit for just another moment. And so then how do we live just this one breath? You listen to the birds, you feel the morning air, and you smile. You breathe it all in, and you smile some more. Then you breathe it all out and you let it go, and you smile again. And so on the in-breath, you smile. On the out-breath, you smile. And then you do it again. May we call to mind all that has supported us from the past, all that is present and alive, all the blessings here and all that will come. And we commit ourselves wholeheartedly to this endeavor of being human, loving, kind, compassionate, and wise. One breath, one moment at a time. And may this practice contribute until all beings are happy, safe, and free. So be it. Thank you all so much on Zoom. We're here going to have a little brunch. It's already just beautiful. We have a beautiful altar here.